My brothers and sisters, you are now watching the Gamer 2323, so just forget about the chores you're supposed to do. Put your feet up, get your Kool-Aid, fried chicken, popcorn, get whatever you may need! And I hope you enjoy the video. Yo, what's going on, my brothers and sisters? So today I got a pretty fun, well, at least in my opinion, a pretty fun video. As you can tell by the title, games you bought based off of strictly the box art. Nothing else. That actually ended up being great games. Now, because we're doing this, I feel like it kind of has to be games more so that was back in the day. Maybe the latest, going back to the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era, because going forward, really even into the PS3 and 360 era, like halfway through that generation, people became really dependent on game reviews. You know, today, if we're interested in the game, what do? You know, most people, they just go on YouTube or Google, type in said game, and they watch a review, or they see gameplay for it, and they make their decision based off of, you know, the stuff that they just seen. But back in the day, to where you didn't have access to stuff like this, and it was kind of hard to, you know, make a decision if you wanted to buy a game or not, people relied on stuff like Game Informer magazines or Game Pro magazines, you know, or G4, and that was really it. So a lot of times you kind of had to, you know, hope or just kind of give this game a shot based off of the box art and what you was reading on the back of the case. So that's where the motivation for this video comes from, my brothers and sisters. I was able to think, though, I had to go way back in the archives of my brain and try to remember games that I, you know, bought that was based off of the box art back in the day that I actually ended up really enjoying. But I was able to orchestrate a list, my brothers and sisters, because I was a huge fan of Spider-Man growing up. PlayStation 1, the very first one, because I didn't really read like a lot of comics like that growing up. So I'm being introduced to all these like characters that I really didn't know about at the time. I really just knew about Spider-Man. I didn't really like know about all like his villains, stuff like that. So I'm being introduced to Venom. I remember like the cutscenes, at least at that point, were amazing. I still remember one of the missions was when you was in this freaking subway tunnel and you had to literally fight all these like mini lizards that was like climbing on top of the freaking train while it's moving, while you're trying to catch up to Venom. Hated that. I hated that mission. I remember that last fight you did where freaking Carnage combined with Doc Ock and it became Monster Ock, being terrified of that freaking chase mission where you had to get away from him. Mostly it was due to me just being a fan of Spider-Man at that time, but it also was because I just thought the cover was just great. And another thing, I feel like game cases back in the day, they just had more character. Like for some reason, they just popped more. Ended up being easily one of my favorite PlayStation 1 games at the time. Last PlayStation 1 game, and this was when like this show was like hot. This game right here, oh my god. Okay, so again, it was because I was a fan of, you know, the show, but the case, I mean, it was a great case. I remember you had some boss.
Ooh, you niggas in trouble.
This dude had every strong card in his deck that you could imagine. Like any card that was like looked at as like, oh my god, he had Blue Eyes, he had Dark Magician, he had Summon Skull, he had the Exodia pieces, he had every great card that you could think of at that point in his deck. That game right there, at that point during the height of Yu-Gi-Oh, was just phenomenal. that me and my sister, my friends, we used to spend so much time playing that game. Ratchet & Clank 1, PlayStation 2. I remember that I finally convinced my mom to get me a PS2. I remember getting the PS2 bundle that came with ATV Off-Road Fury something too. And I remember my mom said, okay, you can either get another game or you can get a memory card. And I was like, I chose to get another game, of course, and I got Ratchet and Clank 1. For some reason, the cover of this game just really looked fun. I fell in love with the franchise quickly after that. Ratchet and Clank Going Commando is still my favorite Ratchet and Clank game out of the entire series. I did not know the series would still be going on today successfully on PlayStation 5, but the moment I seen this case, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get this game, and it actually ended up being really great. Star Ocean Till the End of Time. Wow, it's crazy how like memories are starting to like come back. So at this point, me and my sister have a PS2, but we kind of had this unwritten rule to where if she got a game, I was not able to buy the same game, you know, and vice versa. If I got a game and the game ended up being really good, she wasn't able to get it. That was our unwritten rule. Going to her real quick, she bought this game based off of strictly the box art too. Ended up being one of the most classic PS2 games. She buys Kingdom Hearts 1 strictly based off of the box art. And I remember watching her play that game, and at first I'm like, I was like, yo, you chose trash, because you remember in the very beginning of freaking Kingdom Hearts, you're like collecting logs and ropes and stuff and all, you know, on the freaking beach place. You know, you're like collecting seashells and rocks and logs. I'm like, yeah, this game has stuff, but then the game starts to really get good. And I'm like, ooh, she was like, no, unwritten rule, you can't get this game because I have it. So I was kind of pouting. I'm like, man, bam, I'm looking for something else that could kind of resemble Sora. You know, I seen, you know, a white kid with a sword. I'm like, okay, he got a sword. Sora got a keyblade. Maybe it's kind of close to it. Star Ocean Till the End of Time actually was a really good game. I think it's the only Star Ocean game that I bought, but I do remember playing one of them on PS3. I don't know if I was like kind of just enjoying the game based off of it it was my own thing, trying to like fill the void that I didn't have with Kingdom Hearts. Def Jam Vendetta.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
I was really kind of into fighting and like wrestling at like that point. I literally used to have to sneak to get my wrestling games because my mom didn't like me watch wrestling. She's like, you don't need to be watching that stuff, boy. And I seen, you know, this case right here. For some reason, the case just popped. Again, these game cases back in the day, I just felt like they had so much more character. That game and the story it had, and like it actually had like the voices of all these rappers in like the game. The story was good, the moves were hard hitting. Like, bro, them EA Sports big games were some of the most fun. Like this is when like EA was like actually like damn near a top 3 dev. You know, saying that today is crazy. And it's just, again, games like this is, I feel like, games you don't see today. Like, they used to do just a lot more. I feel like devs just used to do whatever they felt like back in these days, and they ended up being misses sometimes, or other times they ended up being probably more than they were supposed to be, and people fell in love with the freaking game. And I feel like that's what Def Jam Vendetta was. I don't feel like nobody expected this game to have the impact that it had, because it wasn't like, this was a cultural game. This was a game that everyone played. Just because it had rappers in like the game, bro, I had like so many white friends playing this junk, like not knowing who these suckers was. It's like people just used to play this game because it was a good wrestling slash fighting game. What a great choice, you know, of a game to pick just based off of the box art. Had so much fun with that game. Beautiful Joe, man. Ooh, this is when Capcom was like doing all types of games. Like, do y'all remember the days to where Capcom like did other games besides Street Fighter, Resident Evil, maybe a Monster Hunter here or there, and freaking Devil May Cry? Do you remember those days? At that time, the art style and the gameplay was just so different. It was just all really new and fun out of the time. And Beautiful Joe I still feel like is one of Capcom's most underappreciated games, because I always felt like if they like really continued this series could have been bigger than it was. Really fun to play. Did not expect it, of course, but this was another game that I chose based off of the box art alone that I was like, wow. And I had so much fun with it. So, man, now I only have one PS3 game. At this point, I think it's maybe 2008. I didn't get PS3 when it first came out because that jump was $600. So I finally get a PS3, and I buy this game based off of the case. And what? Wow, bro. Like, it's just crazy. Like, back then you're buying this game not knowing what the hell it's about to turn into. I buy this game because, again, for some reason the case just pops out to me. At the time, of course, it was a new IP, and you know, PS3 wasn't really known to have a lot of games at that point, so there wasn't really like specific reasons, maybe outside of Resistance Fall of Man, to where you buy a PS3 specifically for this game. And it wasn't Uncharted Drake's Fortune out of the time. It wasn't until Uncharted 2 came out and got Game of the Year that people really started to pay attention to PS3. The rest is history, really. I mean, Uncharted Drake's Fortune, I feel like Uncharted Drake's Fortune doesn't get enough credit. I feel like people don't really mention this game like this. You know, of course the gameplay was not all the way fleshed out. I don't feel like people talk about Drake's Fortune enough to where story-wise, this is actually one of the best Uncharted games, story-wise. If we're talking strictly story, this has always been one of the best Uncharted games to me. I feel like the people that actually played this game at that point on PlayStation 3, this game was always great, but it took a while for people to like actually start to notice. What a choice. So yeah, man, those are some of my games that I can at least recall me buying just based off of the box art that ended up being actually really great games. I feel like you have to kind of be a certain age for this, because it's like nobody, again, nobody is buying games today based off of the box art. Suckers is gonna go on YouTube or Google, whatever, or go to their favorite reviewing channel, you know, and see if they got a review for that game. So this is kind of like you had to kind of be there at that time, like growing up, not really having access to all this information on games, and just kind of taking a shot on, you know, maybe this game might be good just because of the case, you know. So if you guys can remember any games that you bought back in the day that actually ended up being really great game experience for you, please share in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until the next video, my brothers and sisters, I'll catch you boys in my next one. All right.